Hey everyone, it's Karina with Kenra Professional, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to show you these 4 essential highlighting techniques that are going to help you create some really beautiful dimension in your highlight colors. Today I'm going to be using our Simply Blonde No Ammonia Lightener with 30 volume. I'm going to be mixing this at a 1:2 mixing ratio to show you guys these 4 essential highlighting techniques. The first technique that I'm going to show you guys is one that you may or may not be familiar with, but this one is what we're going to call a teasy light. What's great about a teasy light is it's really going to help create a balayage effect in the hair. So balayage itself is a technique, right, that we hand paint in the hair to create a gradient from dark to light. So when we do a teasy light, we're trying to create that effect. However, it allows us the ability to use foil to generate more lift. So when we do a teasy light, we're gonna typically start off with about a 1/2 inch of subsection, skim the top off so that we're leaving hair in between, and we're gonna back comb this subsection to create diffusion. Now from here you have the option to do a slice like this that I have here, which is what I'm going to do today. It's going to create more boldness in my application. You could also go in and weave this section to create bit more blended diffusion. Okay, so depending on if you want more boldness or more diffusion is how you're going to approach your teasy light in application. So today we're doing a slice. I did a little back combing here, and we're going to go ahead and apply our product. Starting at the mid point here, we're going to really saturate that through the ends. And then to really create that balayage effect, we're going to do some feathering up towards the tease or back comb sectioning. To really help give us that gradients from a dark root into those brighter ends. So we want to see a nice saturation here. You want to put enough product to where you cannot see the hair through the product. So nice and saturated. And then we're going to use a foil over the top. And then just allow that foil to stay secure. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next subsection here. I'm going to show you one more time. So moderate amount of dimension in the hair is going to be a 1/2 inch subsection. This is really important. It's going to make the difference between how much depth you're going to leave in your application. So moderate amount that's going to give you a moderate blend in and dimension is about a 1/2 inch per subsection. We're going to skim the top so that we're leaving hair in between each foil. And then when I create my back comb, I like to find where all these little hairs start to fall out of the strand here. And that's where I'm going to start my back comb and just create one nice diffused back comb. Apply my foil, and then I'm going to apply my product to the mid lengths here. Really work that product nice and saturated through the ends, feathering up towards the root. So you can turn your brush vertical, and feathering up is going to give you more diffusion, less saturation in an upward motion versus going down. Okay, so you definitely want to feather upward. It leaves you with less product higher up on the hair there. And again, you guys, this is just honestly a moderate general guide to get dimension and a particular look in the hair, so you can get as creative as you want with this. Sometimes this is a great technique to use in between your foils, right? If you do a basic weave in each foil and you want to do this technique in between to blonde and do some tip outs, this is another great technique for that as well. I'm doing this on horizontal subsections. Again, that's something you can get as creative as you want with all of these techniques. So just keeping in mind that anytime we are creating dimension in the hair and we're working on that horizontal subsection, you're gonna get bolder color that way, because what happens is the hair is falling on top of each other, so it's a lot bolder versus if you do it on a diagonal, it's gonna be more blended. Another thing to keep in mind when we're doing these backcombing Teasylights is by the time you backcomb, you definitely, if you're gonna do a slice, you definitely wanna make sure you can still see through your section so that you have a nice thin section there, so you get full saturation. You're gonna get a ton of lift this way. So you don't want to have a section too thick, or else you won't generate as much lift as you might be looking for. It might be a little bit warmer and overall just lift a little bit darker. All right, so I'm gonna go in and apply. I'm using the No Ammonia lightener today, so you guys can see it's a little different from our other ones. It's a white powder. What's really cool about this lightener is that it is fragrance free, and I love that we added our dual bond technology to this lightener as well now. So the hair is going to be nice and healthy and feel really nice when I am done with this lifting process. Because of that dual bond complex, we're able to maintain the integrity of the hair. So this is going to give us 8 levels of lift, and because it's a white powder, I find that it's a little bit more of like a sun-kissed end result, which is nice. You can see my mannequin's hair is a little bit on the warmer side anyway, so I really love the lift that this lightener is providing for me today. I'm going to continue this process through the back, so taking a 1/2 inch subsection of hair, skim the top of that subsection so that we're leaving enough depth in between each foil, and creating our first teasy light. And I'm going to continue this process through the entire back section here until I make my way to the top. All right, so we went ahead and I completed both of my subsections here with Teasylights. I'm going to move on to our next technique. The next technique that I'm going to be showing you is our skip slice. So this one is a really great technique to utilize when you want the effect of a slice and a baby light together. So maybe you want the diffusion and softness of a baby light, but you also want a little boldness from a slice. So what we're going to do, again, this is just a moderate starting point for sectioning. We're going to do a 1/2 inch subsection, split that, skim the top off of that subsection. And what we're going to do for the skip slice, so we're going to start off by baby lighting, skip a section, baby light, skip a section. So what you're going to do is create some diffusion with a bit of a gap in between. So again, it's going to allow you to get some diffusion, but then you almost get like diffused ribbons of highlight going through the hair. So this is a really, really pretty effect. Okay, so again, I'm going to show you that again. We're going to take a 1/2 inch subsection. Again, my goal with this application, you guys, is to leave some depth and dimension in between. So once you know the technique, you can get as creative as you want with this. So here we go. We're going to do a nice baby light, skip a section, baby light, to really create a ribbon, a diffused ribbon effect in the hair is what I kind of like to refer to it as. So you can see there's a pretty significant separation between each baby light, which helps to create more of a ribbon effect. But then you still have it diffused. It's not like taking a full slice and leaving a gap in between, right? So it's going to be a lot more of a diffused application. I do find that when I'm working with any lightener and I'm getting full saturation, it can make the foil a bit heavy. So what I like to do is instead of fold the foil, use a foil on top to do more like a sandwich method. And then you can definitely anchor in the sides here to really help secure your foil at the root area. So this is a great technique that you can use when you do a foilage to really help give a nice blend through, you know, the root area, you know, to really just create some diffusion. And then maybe you go in between the foils with your teasy light technique, right? To do some tip outs to really blonde and make the bottom more solid, but keep all this soft diffusion throughout the rest. Another fun thing you can do with product application in your foils, no matter what technique you choose, whether it's this one, baby lights, teasy lights, or slices, is how you apply your product in the foil. You can do it in a V shape, And what that's gonna do is give you the effect but leave depth a little bit lower. So I'm just kind of showing you guys some different ways to get creative with your highlights as well, simply by using the effect and then maybe changing the way you apply the product in your foil. Highlighting is really all about creating different heights of highlight throughout your canvas. Okay, so I mean, traditionally we used to just do it all the same throughout the entire portion of the head, but just know you can get creative with placement inside your foil as well. So that maybe you want some highs, maybe you want some lows, you can create that all in your foil no matter what technique you choose to use. All right, so now I'm in the back last section here. Gonna take that 1/2 inch subsection of hair starting in the nape. Also, when you're highlighting, you guys, keep in mind of your heat zones around the perimeter everywhere. So front hairline, back hairline, it's gonna be a pretty high heat zone, so you can adjust your developer. Maybe use a no ammonia with 10 volume back here. All the foils are gonna lay on top of these nape foils, so it's gonna produce a lot more heat. So you can definitely adjust your formulas as you work through a highlight like this. I'm gonna start off with that same skip slice. So taking my Babylights and skipping a section. So when you have more narrow subsections, it's definitely gonna look super diffused until you start working in the interior more and you get a little bit more hair and a little more width on your subsections. All right, so here's my last section here. One of the things that I really love about No Ammonia Lightener also, if you are doing highlights towards the root, just be mindful that it doesn't swell. So I know sometimes we're taught like leave room for swelling. This one isn't necessarily gonna swell and expand towards the root. So if you wanna get really nice and tight on the root, you can without the fear of it bleeding because it's not gonna swell. So we did the Teasylight technique on this 1/2 of her head. So we're gonna let all of this process for 45 minutes. Teasylights on this 1/2 of her head. We did the skip slice technique on this 1/2 of the head. So we're gonna let this process and then I'll bring her back and show you guys the difference in each effect. You guys will see it visually as well, so stick around. The third technique that I'm going to walk you guys through is our Babylight technique. This one is a little bit more common. You might hear it referred to as a micro weave, a baby light, fine weave. All of those terms are really just speaking to the amount of hair that we are going to pick up in each subsection here. So we're gonna do a 1/2 inch moderate baby light. So this technique is really good to create maximum diffusion, you guys. Like if you do this technique super fine, you're going to get such a natural diffusion in your end result, in your highlight. So it's really great for, again, just creating that dimension and diffusion in a very soft way. So when we do the baby light, you're potentially picking up anywhere from 12 to maybe 15 pieces of very finely woven hair. And we are going to apply this close to the root to get the full effect here. Full saturation. So this technique is really good for, let's say you want to take somebody all over lighter and you want it to be nice and natural, nice and diffused. You could do Babylights all over. What's really great about Babylight technique is because you're picking up such a fine amount of hair, finer pieces, you're gonna generate tons of lift. So the hair lifts a lot better and more even when you take these really fine types of subsections and overall weave pattern. The 1/2 inch is going to give you, keep and maintain some depth in between each foil so you get a nice dimension. However, you could also do this back to back to create a very natural all over color change, to take somebody from brunette to blonde and get a nice even lift that's also super diffused and has a natural dimension to it. So there's a lot of different ways to utilize Babylights. It almost gives a glistening highlight effect to the hair, whereas standard or traditional weave patterns and weaves give a bit more of like a chunky, very structured look. This one looks very natural and just overall nice and seamless. So you could use this for foilaging. You can use this as an all-over color change. Anytime you want to have a natural glistening type of diffusion in your highlights, I would definitely go in with a baby light. So sometimes I know stylists like to use this technique around the hairline to keep the hairline from being super stripy or too bold around the face. So you can do this technique around the hairline and then switch to something more bold in the interior of the hair where you want to see a bit more impact there. Or if you want something super soft all over, you can definitely utilize this all over. You will notice that with each of these techniques also, I am sandwiching my foils. That is really because when you take the less hair you have in the foil, you apply a lot of product to saturate, it can create a bit more of a slipping effect because of the weight inside your foil. So I really prefer a sandwich method because if you go in and fold this up, you're creating even more weight and it's going to help this foil slip and tug down. But you can see the diffusion that we're able to get with a baby light. You can still see the foil through each subsection, which is going to give you a great saturation, and overall you'll end up with a nice even lift. All right, so I'm at my last section here, right on the part area. If I was doing this on a full head, today I'm doing half head, so you guys see the difference. But if I was doing this on a full head, I would take a little skim. Let's say she parted her hair here. I would take a skim from this side, a skim from that side, and go ahead and baby light that so you get full highlight coverage if she were to part her hair. When you're going in horizontally, you definitely want to take into consideration where your guest is parting their hair so you get full coverage. So I'm going to take this last little bit. Another tip when you are highlighting is highlight about a ½ inch from the scalp. This is going to help you pick up all of the hair. Sometimes what happens is we have these little bits towards the root, and if we highlight from down here, we don't pick up those pieces, and it'll create a more gappy highlight, and you won't see that highlight travel through the end. So it's really important to start your highlight closer to the root when you're going for a more classic to the root highlight look versus like a balayage or melted root. So this section, because it's on top, I'm going to feather up towards the root. Instead of applying my full saturation, I'm going to apply full saturation a little lower and feather up to help with any hard lines. With baby lights, you shouldn't have to do a root shadow or root tap if you don't want to do a root shadow or root tap. It should be diffused enough just from the effect alone to just have a softness at the root. You're not going to get any strong lines. I always recommend feathering up towards the root either way. But it's going to be your last foil here. And then I'm going to continue this same process in the back quadrant. So I'm finishing up this back quadrant here, taking a really fine weave to create my baby light just in through the top. All right, so the last highlight technique, I'm sure we're all familiar with this one. It's gonna be our slicing technique. Definitely wanted to showcase this technique if you're not using it. I know it's something that is a bit bolder, so we don't think to use it as often, but I want to show you how to use it today to help give a bold effect, but you can also still get some really nice blends with slicing, and it's a lot faster as well. So I'm going to again keep maintaining that ½ inch subsection, but when we're slicing, you guys, if you literally just skim the top of your subsection, you almost create a baby light effect by skimming. So I'm going to show you on the foil so you can see exactly how thin of a section we're talking here. So not quite as thin as a baby light, as fine as a baby light, but it still has a nice bit of diffusion. So just by skimming the top of your slice, or let's say you are going in back-to-back slices, keeping these little sections super thin, ultra thin this way, is gonna take away from that chunky, you know, stripy look that we're sometimes used to slices giving us, okay? So what's really cool about this effect, again, is you can get some really bold, intense, more intense and bold pops of highlight in your color application. However, it doesn't have to be chunky and stripy as long as you're taking really thin sections. You can literally go in by leaving hair in between. It's going to help add highs and lows to the overall look to keep it nice and blended as well. A great opportunity for using slices. I prefer to use slices when I'm working through the interior of the hair because I need to get that boldness. And sometimes the baby lights can get a little bit lost. They're a little too diffused when you're working with dense, thick hair and you really need to get some color back there. Taking slices can really be an advantage and help you get through that density a lot faster, and you just get that nice boldness as well. I have in fact used horizontal slicing in an application before for one of my guests that wanted to go blonder. She wanted to look more like a solid blonde, but obviously she didn't want to do an actual global lightening application. This is a great way to just have sheets of blonde laying on top of each other, going in horizontally, but taking a bolder effect to achieve more color in the hair. All right, so this is my last section. I made my way to the top. So taking horizontal subsections through the nape as well. 1/2 inch. We're gonna skim the top of this. Okay, so I have made my way to the top here. So overall, getting through the quadrant in a very time efficient manner here, maintaining 1/2 inch subsections and literally skimming off the top my slice. Okay, so we've completed both halves of the head here. I did use the no ammonia lightener as well with 30 volume. So we're gonna let this mannequin process for 45 minutes and then I'll rinse her out and show you guys the end result of both of our effects here. Okay everyone, so I'm excited to share with you the end result of both of the techniques that we did today. On this side we have our baby light technique. You can see how we were still able to create some boldness, but it's also nice and blended because we utilized the horizontal subsection. And on the other side we used our slicing technique and we were able to create some really beautiful blends by skimming the top. But let me show you the side first that we utilize baby lights. You can see that we do have some really beautiful blended dimension. And again, we're able to create some boldness because we utilize that horizontal subsection on our placement. And we have the other side where we actually use slices. And honestly, look how seamless this looks. It looks really natural, really diffused. And that is all because we were able to take really, really fine subsections, skimming the 1/2 inch off the top and utilizing the placement and the effect to help us create that nice seamless blend. All right, so the last two highlight techniques that we did that I want to go over with you guys is we did our Teasylights on this side, and then we went ahead and did our skip slice on this side here. So I definitely can see a difference in that application. I'm going to spin her to the side so you could see it even better. So with the Teasylight, remember you guys, the idea was to create a gradient using our technique here. So the root is a little darker and we transition into those lighter dimensional ends here. So again, this is just a moderate way to add some dimension, but keep it more balayaged in your end result, but still get a nice lift in here through the end. So really good outcome for the Teasylight technique. And then we're gonna move to the other side here, which is our skip slice. This was a really fun technique. We were able to create some nice dimension that overall looks, you know, very soft, but we did create a soft ribbon effect. So you'll notice like right here around the face, you can see some of that stronger ribbon panels, but they're still really diffused and blended out because we were able to use our skip slice technique to create dimension in this side of her hair. So I hope you guys like the way all of these techniques came out, and seeing them side by side can really help you, you know, really just overall pick which technique you want to use. You can utilize any of them together to create an overall blonde dimensional look. I hope you guys enjoyed learning these 4 essential highlighting techniques with us today. Don't forget to subscribe to Kenra Professional YouTube channel if you want to see more videos like this. And if you have any other topics you want to suggest, don't forget to drop them in the comments. I'll see you guys next time.